you know, just taking it one day at a time.
Really, that's all we could do.
It's been a while.
I know. So happy to hear from you.
I know. I'm still alive and kicking, and you know, still out here trying to make it happen.
Good. How's baby boy?
Oh man, that little boy is good, man. Whew, he grew up so fast.
I know. So how old is he? Like 3 now, right?
He'll be 3 in December, and that little boy, man, his reasoning skills, he is off the charts, man. I mean, he's counting up to 25, and he's 30 now.
Wow.
Numbers, alphabets. I mean, but I give it all. It's all Bree.
Yeah.
It's all Bree. She's reading to him every night. You know, it's all her.
Yeah. Isn't it crazy how much they know, though? It's just like, is it something in the formula or whatnot? It is just unbelievable. So I have a 3-year-old grandson and a 22-month-old grandson, and I swear the 22-month-old one knows way too much. And the thing is that he looks at you like, I can't speak, so how can I be, that smart? And you're like, yeah, you're not going to fool me much longer with that innocent look on your face.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, it's really, what you put in is what you get out.
Exactly. Absolutely. I remember my dad used to have a saying, and I never understood it. When you're young and your parents talk to you, you're like, oh my God, you're talking again. And my dad always used to say, as the more you nurture the flower, the more it would bloom. And I'm like, okay, what are you trying to tell me? And I was only like 16 when he would say that. And it would be always because, I was fussing about going to school, or I was fussing about learning something that he was trying to teach me. And now I think back and I'm like, that's exactly what he meant. So you're absolutely right.
Now I get it.
Exactly. Why didn't I get it then?
Life, man.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for taking some time in and to talk to me. And, when I was thinking about, obviously we know our paths have crossed from entrepreneurship and something. It's a lot of entrepreneurial endeavors. And
right.
I was thinking about this podcast because obviously being an entrepreneur, there are tons of highs and tons of lows. And, as you know,
yes.
The entrepreneurial journey sometimes can be a very lonely one. It's one where you feel like nobody else is going through a struggle like you, or maybe, things are stalling because you're not a great CEO, or maybe it's just you, as opposed to, it's just life.
It's just life, yeah.
I created this platform, and I wanted to interview a lot of different people from a lot of different backgrounds to talk about how do we deal with life's failures, quote unquote, the failures in our lives and the setbacks, the disappointments, and then how do we change our mindset to be able to see it as a glass half full as opposed to glass half empty?
Right.
And obviously, as I was going through my list of people, I was like, oh yeah, I got it. Oh yeah. Y'all were definitely at the top of the list. So I'm super excited to have you, and thank you for giving me some time.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. It's so funny that you said that, because now that we have this so-called time at home, which is really seems like now I have less time than I did before, because of course now we're trying to reinvent ourselves and our program and what else could we do. One of the things that we've been talking about is we get all these information and emails. I'm getting inundated with emails talking about, of course the loans, of course the so-called grants that we never qualify for because, we're too small. But nobody talks about the emotional strain that we're going through. Everybody talks about how they could get us actually really in more debt, because if you think about the loans that we'll get, it's more debt. But nobody talks about the emotional strain that we're going through, because this is very emotionally draining as an entrepreneur, and especially if your business, like our business was growing. I was calling it being on a training train. We were 6 weeks nonstop training law enforcement, and then this happened. So it's like when we had already talked about what our projection for the year was going to be, it's now we're going to have to do something else. And here we are thinking we're going to be able to train online, do that, online live training. Our training wasn't certified for online. So that put another stop. So it's constantly trying to reinvent yourself and what could we do? And it's emotionally draining. I spent 3 weeks without being able to sleep. And, I practice meditation. I do hypnotherapy. We do the neuro-linguistic programming. Plus, we have our own, the needs-based method. And so I was practicing all that. So on the outside and during the day, you're like, hey, you're good. Like I was coming on, on Instagram and motivating people. And everybody was telling me, like, how can you be so uplifting during this time? But at nighttime, I couldn't sleep. And I couldn't pinpoint why is it that I couldn't sleep. Well, subconsciously, all this was just taking a toll in me, and even though we weren't like financially struggling, but the fact that it was like we were just breaking through the iceberg, and then this happened.
So we're gonna unpack some of that. Before I even jump in, because that was a good segue. Before I even jump in, I'm gonna do a segment called Dead or Alive. You get the opportunity to have lunch with someone for 2 hours. Dead, they can be dead or alive. Who do you choose and where do you take them to eat?
Oh my goodness. Okay, so right off the top of my head, I want to say Oprah, just because I love her. But I gotta tell you, it's I call him Uncle Warren Buffett. I've been following Warren Buffett since I was younger. And one of the things I admire about him is he still drives the same car, lives in the same house. And I absolutely love the fact of what he's done with his kids and grandkids. Everybody has always gotten $250,000. Do with it what you want.
Yep.
You could either make money or you could spend it.
So where do you take Warren Buffett to eat for lunch?
I would take him to a coffee shop.
There you go.
Yeah, because he's not. He's so funny. He talks about instead of buying a burger at McDonald's, buy stocks at McDonald's. So he's one of those that, I wouldn't spend a lot of money on him.
You're not trying to impress him, right?
Not at all.
Where do you take him to eat, right? It's like,
yeah.
Burger King.
I'm just trying to pick his brain, give me some information. Yeah.
So I am having the pleasure of speaking to Alina. You guys, did I say it correctly?
Yes, you guys.
I was like, I believe it's you guys, but it's been a while since I've said it.
Yeah.
And I know you. I know your background, and I know some of the things that you've been doing. But for those who are going to be watching this and listening to it, give us a kind of rundown of like who you are, kind of what you're involved in, what your story is, what are you involved in now, and kind of your path.
Yeah.
I'll shut up and let you take the stage.
Thanks. So I've actually been an entrepreneur since I was 12. We've always had a family-owned business. When we came from Cuba, that was the first thing my mom, the American dream is have your own business and buy your house. So I've been involved in family-owned businesses since then. And recently when we started our business in 2013 was because we wanted to help those involved, we don't want to call them addict, but consume drug and alcohol for a long period of time. Then for about 3 years, we noticed that the people that are actually needing our help were not the ones coming to us. Who was coming to us were their family members. So we realized that that's not the path that we wanted to take. So we, written books and all that. So a couple of years ago, we decided to venture into the family business. And that's helping family in business that are struggling with a family member that's using drugs or the dynamics within the family business. Everybody wants to be a chief. Nobody wants to be an Indian. Also, the fact that the dynamic in the family business, the chaos, it's unbelievable. I lived it. And so I know. And so that's something that we started honing in on that. And we were doing really, really well, you know. And so we thought that
So when you say we,
oh, Michael and I.
we-
Yeah, Michael and I. So, you know, our business is called The Final Step. And we do have a methodology that's called the needs-based method. We believe that an individual reacts and acts to all of their needs not being met. And so that's, you know, where the outbursts come in, where the addiction comes in, and, you know, the unfulfilled, not dreams, but the unfulfilled action, you know, what leads him into incarceration, drug abuse, anger. So, you know, we were really helping the family. So our success rate with the family is 85%, that they will gain an 85% success rate within the family business. They're dynamic and will be able to fix the anger within the family. And our businesses have gained up to 50% of increased income.
oh my goodness.
Yeah, so it's been doing, you know, that part of the business was doing really, really well. So we were really happy with that. And then on top of that, you know, we do teach law enforcement. Michael is he's actually retired from the probation department. So he's a retired probation officer, and we've had a contract with the state of California for the past 3 years, and now actually started growing. And so we teach law enforcement on 3 training, which is addiction within the law enforcement due to stress. And then addiction with the family dynamic for the clients. And then also within the law enforcement structure is the learning and thinking style, how people learn and think, and what makes them, you know, that friction within the job. So, yeah, we're doing it. Yeah.
Oh my God. You just took all those years and like 30 seconds.
Wait.
Talk about the final step. Okay, so I'm gonna go back to the final step because you just kind of just went over it really quickly.
Yeah.
So I know that you all have written some books.
Yes.
And that have done really well. Can you talk about some of the books that you all wrote and kind of put out to the world? Because you talked about this need-based method. That's a methodology that you all created.
Correct.
And based off of, you know, research and tons of interviews
Yes.
and working with a lot of people. So tell me a little bit about the book, and then, how the needs-based method kind of came.
I was trying to see if I have a book. Yeah, so the book was created in over 6,500 interviews of emotionally stunted clients. And so that, so Michael wrote a book, and so out of the 6,500 interviews, 95% came from fatherless homes. So that wasn't intentional. It just happened. And so, you know, they ended up being in abusive relationships, drug and alcohol, incarceration. So they were pretty much not in the most successful path. And even some of them were doctors, attorneys. We have CEOs from, yeah. So and then after that, we wrote a workbook to go with it, because our methodology, our biggest dream is to be able to teach other therapists our methodology. And so, you know, that's why we developed the needs-based method. And now we have the needs-based method training. So we're going to train it, and we have a registered trademark. And then, like, that wasn't enough. It was just, you know, the universe I got together. I met Les Brown for his 75th birthday. And yes, and that was been a dream of mine for like 30 years. I call him Uncle Les before I met him. And so I was together. I worked on a project with his daughter, Ona, and we published a book, Own Your Dreams. And I have a chapter in that book, Finding Inner Peace and Joy, which we just published in September. We did a soft launch, and the book was picked up by a publishing company. So, so we're, you know, and Les did the acknowledgement on the book. So that's been I mean, that's really what opened me up to, to be up front and center, because, I've always been like the business part of Final Step. So now, I'm speaking and doing a lot more. I speak on generational shaming, which comes from, when you do just what your parents did because that's all you know. And so it just continues from generation to generation. In my background, it's always been the medical field and mental health. So I do know how damaging that could be. So that's one of the things that I speak on. I'm really strong about that.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Yeah, man, this is going to be good. Because, I have a million questions. But one of the things that I'm a firm believer of, and I'm sure through your research and through your experiences, the early years really helps us to shape our perspective and the lens in which we view the world.
Right.
So tell me, how did your early years shape your perspective of how to deal with failure, disappointment, or setbacks?
Right.
What did the early years tell you?
So this is why my book is about that. I did not realize that my travel from Cuba to the United States had done so much emotional damage. So when I came from Cuba, I was 8 years old. My dad left Cuba when I was 5 years old. And at the age of 5, when he left, he didn't tell us that he was leaving. So he just took off. He disappeared. So we found out that he actually had fled to the United States 2 weeks after. So right there, that whole detachment started happening. So I started having attachment issues, not knowing it. And then my sister was 8 months old. And so the first setback was like my sister was born, and everybody laughs at me because they're like, your sister was born. But my mom didn't tell me that she was pregnant. So she shows up with my sister. And so it was like, oh yeah, she's cute, take her back. And my mom's like, oh no, we get to keep her. I'm like, oh no, we don't, because, exactly. So that was, I was the only girl for 5 years. So then you bring in another child. So that was the first shock. Then my dad leaves. And so then when we left Cuba, my mom didn't tell us we were leaving Cuba. So we didn't get to say goodbye to any of our friends, our family, or anything. So we go on a train ride that we've never gone on. And so we were excited. So we get to Havana. And now we're told we're going on the way I remember and I described it is we're going on a silver tube. Well, we've never seen an airplane before. And so now we're going on the silver tube, and next thing you know, we're up in the air, which I thought it was going to ride like a train. I didn't know. And you look down, and it's like, what's going on down there? And so the stewardess, in her broken Spanish, is trying to explain to me what's happening. And so then we go from Cuba to Mexico, another shock, because we've never been to Mexico. We've never seen a tortilla, a burrito, nothing. And so to get used to that culture, to come to the United States to get used to another culture. So it was that one shock after the other. So all these years till just recently, I've always have had that detachment issue. And I remember one day, my daughter was 16 years old and I was at Costco and I couldn't find her. And I went into a panic. Well, she was right behind me and she was like playing with me. And I literally almost had a nervous breakdown. And then, years have passed and Michael, we were at a grocery store or something and I couldn't find Michael and I lost it. Well, then, of course, after working with me in the needs-based method, we come to figure out that that's actually what happened. I was having detachment issues, like at a grocery store. Where was he going to go? Realistically speaking, but the fact that I've gone through all that childhood issues and never worked through them. Even though I worked in mental health, nobody ever brought that up.
And that's the part that is so fascinating to me. Like, I went to school for psychology. I'm always fascinated with people's stories because it doesn't matter how you look on the outside, what you're doing, how successful you are. We all have our own demons that we fight.
Absolutely.
It doesn't matter how many books we wrote. It doesn't matter if you're the president. It doesn't matter if you're Barack, Michelle,
Yep.
Oprah. We all have our demons that we fight. And until we are able to confront those demons and be able to deal with them and move and understand why we are, right? It's not just the understanding the emotion, like I'm sad, but why are you
the
sad?
Why. And that's our book. It's, when nobody's home, the why to your unwanted behavior. You have to understand the why you're behaving the way that you're behaving. And I hate it when people say get over it. You don't get over it. You could try, you could hide it, you could push it down, but you don't ever get over it unless you understand the why. Then you could get over it.
Because you can make a choice.
Yeah.
Because now you know why. And so either you can, So did you just reserve to the idea that just bad stuff happens and you just have to deal with it? Was that your mindset, or was your mindset like, I don't know when the next bad thing, like something bad is going to happen and it's just around the corner growing up? Like, what was your kind of perspective when it came to just bad things? Or were you numb to it? Did you say, well, I've already dealt with all these bad things, nothing else bad can happen? What was your kind of perspective?
Yeah, no, I never had that attitude. My attitude was, things just happen. Not things just happen to me. And when I would hear people say, why are these things happening to me? Even though when I was little, I would always say, well, why not you? Like, what makes you so special? I always had that attitude, but never understood why I had that attitude, until now. And I remember, like, my mom was, like, one of the nicest people in the world. And then, like, things would happen to her. And then her friend I used to call her the witch since I met her. Like, there was something about that lady that was just not, right. And I would always tell my mom, well, why is it always nice things happen to the witch and nothing bad ever happens to her? And my mom would always used to tell me, just be patient, things would always unfold. But on the outside, her friend had everything, the house, the car, the money, but on the inside, she was living an internal hell. And I didn't understand that as a kid. So until I was in my 30s, then I was like, oh, and then I asked my mom's like, that's exactly what I mean. I'm peaceful on the inside. It doesn't matter. I don't need all these material things, but, peace is really what you need. Inner peace is really what you need. And I found that out like 3 years ago.
So what was it? So I'm always a firm believer as well. Like all these lessons that we think that we know and we, and all of this stuff, there comes a point in time when all of that stuff, it all hits the fan, and now you really are going to see if all the stuff you've been talking about, you really believe it, and how much you really believe it. So the moment when, even this COVID-19 situation that you just talked about, you're on Instagram, you're encouraging people, but then on the other side, you're not sleeping.
Right.
Right? You're allowing it to get to you in some kind of way. What was it that allowed you to shift your perspective and say, enough is enough. I can't let this bog me down anymore?
Actually, believe it or not, my mom passed away 3 years ago, and that's when it happened. I was always been a human doer, so I've been taking care of my mom for 26 years. She's always been ill. Even though I've raised, 3 daughters on my own, I was a single parent, and my mom's been ill for 26 years. I've had a full-time job, so I was always doing, so I've never had a chance to step back and think. So that was great for me, because I've always been busy. So when my mom passed away, 6 months after she passed away, I became really sick, and I couldn't figure out why. And the doctors had put me in all kinds of medicine, and everything was making me sick, and finally, I started seeing a psychologist, a psychiatrist, because at that point, I believed that Michael wasn't helping me enough, because to him, everything that I do is just great. And I'm like, I need somebody that could tell me that what I'm doing is incorrect. Not, everything I do is wonderful. And so the psychiatrist just wanted to give me medication. The therapist was just, she would tell me that I was she's Cuban and I love her, and so she was just telling me that I was just very impulsive, and she wasn't really getting me. And so then I decided to practice mindfulness. I'm like, okay, you know what, Alina? First of all, I never believed in depression because my mom never believed in depression. That's where the generational shaming comes in. So I just had it was like one of those moments. I was at Cal State Dominguez. I was doing a talk, and one of the girls came up to me and she said she did not want to graduate because she was graduating without having a job. And her family was telling her that, you know, you're graduating, you went to a fancy school, and you're still nobody, and da-da-da-da-da. And I'm like, wait a minute. And so talking to her, I realized that her family was shaming her. And I'm like, we got to put a stop to this. And that's when I decided to step up. I'm like, nope, I'm not letting you go down like that. And that, talking to her, kind of like gave me that kick in the butt for me to do something different. So then I started practicing everything that I'm preaching. And I'm like, I'm not going down like this. I went cold turkey on all my medicine. I stopped seeing everybody. I started meditating. I do hypnosis. And I started just doing and practicing our own thing, you know, the needs-based method. I pulled out my sheet. Everything that Michael's been telling me to do that I wasn't doing, you know, because we have a sheet that tells you like what needs are not being met. And I started circling them. And so Michael says, you know, how do you eat an elephant? And I'm like, I don't want to talk about this. Can we just work on this? And so he's like, you know, little bites at a time. And so we started working on all of my needs that were not being met. And how could we meet them? You know, and little by little. And then writing my book was so lethargic. It was unbelievable, which I never expected that. And, you know, I would say I haven't taken any pain medicine for over 2 years, you know, and I refuse to. And so I would say mindfulness is a huge part of my daily living. It's crazy. Like I wake up in the morning, and I've lived in the same place since 2012. And I have a condo, so it's not like I have a beautiful, you know, an enormous house. And I wake up every day and I'm like, oh my God, this is so beautiful. Like even my plant that are dying, I only have cactuses. I'm like, you're so pretty today. You know, it's just the outlook is so different. And when I wasn't sleeping, it was because I was creating, like what happens with me, Juan, is I take on other people's thing. Like I would hear in the news how people are suffering, how they don't have. Homeless people really are just a super soft spot for me. And so then I had to stop watching the news. And I just can't, you know, do this. So
you all are dealing with, you know, people who are functioning in the real world really well. Or maybe not.
And maybe not.
But in the world standards, they could be a CEO.
They are.
They could be, you know, it's not, so the stigma that, you know, mental health is only someone on Skid Row.
Nope.
Who are dealing, you have functioning CEOs, you have law enforcement agents, you have lieutenants and sergeants. And
we have doctors that are on the front line. That's just, yeah.
So how is it that people can compartmentalize? Do you feel that people are able to compartmentalize, or do you think that these things that happen in the deep recesses of their minds still show themselves in some sort of capacity in their day-to-day?
That's exactly what's happening.
With the signs, once you are able to put the flashlight, you're like, oh, that's why Dr. So-and-so behaves. That's why Lieutenant does. Talk about that.
Yeah, that's exactly what's happening. That's why we call them human doers. You know, and actually that's what we're working on right now. We're doing a presentation for CEOs. And so we're working on like, what are we going to title it? Because what they're doing is they're bringing their childhood to work. And people don't notice that. So what had happened to them in their childhood is how they're reacting in their adult life. And that's exactly. So, you know, you go to the doctors and you said to yourself, ooh, Dr. So-and-so has horrible bedside manners. Well, that's because of something that happened in his childhood. You know, or you get stopped by a cop and you're like, oh, he's having a horrible day. No, he had a horrible childhood. You know, and this is something that unless you know, you don't know. You don't know what you don't know. You know, when people say that, you're like, oh, okay, what does that mean? But that's exactly it. So when we just trained almost 200 sheriffs up in San Joaquin, and the look on their faces when we've, you know, done our stuff, it's been unreal. The thing is that we don't know as civilians what they go through on their job either. You know, the things that, like the inmates call them and the things that they say to them and the daily threats that they go through. So here we are coming in trying to teach them how to decipher what other people are telling them. You know, it's kind of hard when you're going through this for 16 hours a day and then you have to go home and, you know, and then you can't talk to your wife or kids about this. So it's like, where do you turn? You know.
To that, you know, the saying, hurt people, right?
Exactly.
I mean, but it's just so crazy how these things work, because until you have someone who understands how to unpack this and what those signs are, you don't even know that the stuff you went through in your childhood or growing up is not normal.
Right.
Is not, you know, is not serving you in a positive way. You just think, well, that's just my dad just yells, and that's just what it is. And I got used to it at some point, and now you are exhibiting certain behaviors, and you're not realizing, well, maybe dad yelling wasn't the best thing. It wasn't creating some really great habits or great environment, right? So give me, what would be step one for someone? I mean, obviously, I know you have a whole methodology, you have books, you are doing training, but what is, for those who are listening, for someone to say, like, well, I don't know if, maybe some of the behaviors that I have, like, I don't know if it's because of something that happened to me.
Yeah.
What is the first step of just realizing or coming to, you know, some sort of epiphany about our childhood, about our past experiences, and how it's affecting us now?
It's awareness. And that sometimes is the hardest thing. Awareness. You need to be aware of what happened in your childhood that is actually affecting you in your adult life. And not, you know, you hear people say, I came from a great home. Okay, what was so great about your home? Write it down. You know, I call it brain dumping. And so when I do see my clients, you know, depending on what they say, I say, okay, so write down all the wonderful things about your childhood, all the wonderful things that your mom has said to you, all the wonderful things that your dad has said to you. Wonderful things. Because we could go both ways. Now, when you say negative things, you know, it could impact them differently. So unless I know the client, so I say wonderful things. And so when you cannot come up with something wonderful, and the best thing that you could come up with is your room is clean, or, oh, you keep a neat room, and they cannot personalize something, okay, that's not such a wonderful household.
Yeah, we ate every day. You know?
Exactly. Or we had a roof over our head, and, you know, okay, but what did they say to you? Well, you know, personalize this. And sometimes I say, you know, write 10 things. Or then, you know, be aware of how much love they gave you. And a pat on the head wasn't enough. And, you know, the fact that they showed up. Yeah, but how did they show up? You know, because one of our clients, his dad was an attorney, and his dad would come home, and the client was sitting down. He says he remembers being 6 years old and sitting down, and the dad would come in, and he's like, hi, dad. And the dad would just literally walk by him. So now he's a dentist, and guess what? His staff can't stand him because he's unbearable.
I'm probably not the person who says good morning when he walks in.
Not at all.
So, and yeah, I mean, so do you suggest, what is your suggestion? Do you suggest people working through this with professionals?
I realized that I had a book. I'm getting ready to do my homework. So I had a workbook. I don't have a book. Absolutely. I think everybody needs a coach. I mean, how many coaches do I have? So I do believe everybody needs a coach. Some people refuse to get one because of the stigma or whatnot. Out of all the things that we do, I absolutely love hypnosis. And a lot of people are afraid of it. Nothing to be afraid of. One of the things with hypnosis is because you're so relaxed, it brings out, like, I want to say your true self. And you don't do anything that you don't want to do, but it does. I mean, with me, so hypnosis brings out your, like the underlying issue. When in coaching, you just bring up your conscious, you're at your conscious level. Hypnosis is your unconscious level.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so it's super, super cool. So one of our clients, she's been working with Michael, and she's actually a therapist herself. And so I did a session of hypnosis, and what she was not letting go of was her divorce 35 years ago, of what her ex-husband said to her, which she's like, I don't think about him. And I said, okay, so what was it that was bothering you about him? And then we come to find out during hypnosis, it's something that he said to her. It was a curse that he put on her, that she wasn't going to be anybody. And so even though she had graduated and gotten her master's and everything, that was in the back of her head. So after we did our one session of hypnosis, it was good. She was good to go. You don't realize it, but she says she went back to her old stomping grounds, and this was the first time in 35 years she had not thought about him or what he said to her. Yeah. So then she came back to tell me. So that's really, really cool. But we do have the 7-step. We do have our workbook, which I didn't realize I had anything here. But like I said, so next week I graduate from USC. I'm doing a business program there, and so that's why I have the workbook, not the book, because my presentation is about our business. But I totally do recommend people going and seeing a therapist. I want to start next week on a group coaching on Zoom. We've done a couple, but I want to start doing it on a weekly basis. It's free, just to help people out, especially during this time, because this is, we're getting a lot of requests for it. And I'm also, actually my doctor, my primary care doctor suggested that I do a group on with diabetics, because she knows that my mom was diabetic and I've been in the medical field and all that. She says that 62% of the people that are dealing with COVID-19 are diabetics.
Yep, and people who are diabetic are so fearful right now.
Yeah.
Because all you hear is high risk category.
Yeah.
Et cetera. Now, it's oh gosh, I just had a question and I just went blank. But yeah, I do think I think what you're talking about and what you're doing, I mean, I think it's phenomenal. Like it's much needed, because there's a lot of, I think I just told my dad, I was like, man, the world would be a very different place if a lot of more people just went and saw a therapist.
Yeah, right. Just practice mindfulness. If we practice mindfulness, it's great. And I'm telling you, I love it.
I know what I was going to say. Right now, people are having hard times because you can't be. Now you're forced to be at home sit with your issues.
Yeah. And
now you have to sit, and it's making you think about. You can't go. You can't go.
Yeah.
You can't spend 3 hours on the trail, or be in the gym for 4 hours, or go shopping and do a whole bunch of stuff and be all out and about. There's no play dates. There's no
right.
Busy. And now you have to sit down and you have to deal with those insecurities. You have to deal with that feeling of inadequacy or whatever, or have those things that somebody told you 35 years ago that you're not going to be nothing. Now it's playing in your mind and you're thinking about it constantly. So I think even though your business has pivoted so much right now, I think you're going to probably be busier than ever.
Right.
People are now, they got to unpack all this stuff.
Exactly. And doing a Zoom session with a coach or a therapist is really I would say as good as seeing them, having them in person. And I think that still getting that idea through people's head is a little bit harder. But, we are offering the Zoom sessions. I call them e-sessions, but still it's the same thing. And we're also offering, also if they go on our website, Final Step International, they could download our 7-step system. And they could just go, and it's free, and they could just download it, and they could just, they could go through it and see where they are at in their own discovery steps. And we're also offering a 20-minute coaching session, absolutely free. So we are more than willing to help people during this time, to work with them. And also people with addiction, they're sitting at home and now they can't go to AA. And that's one of the reasons that we do more than the 12-step program and having you go to those meetings all the time. We do our 7-step program and then they don't have to go to the meetings, because in times like this, when you cannot get to your meetings, then what do? You always have your system that you're able to go back through. So we're offering, all those tips and tools that you could use.
So tell us one more time, where can we get more information about the final step, about the needs-based method, about the workbook, about everything that you all are doing, the 20-minute coaching session, the sessions that you're doing, and then hypnosis as well, because I've never looked into hypnosis.
Oh my goodness, I'm gonna have to give you a session. I love it.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to take you up on that.
Yes, you're gonna love it.
I do practice a lot of mindfulness, and I think a lot of stuff that I've worked through on my own, but I'd be interested to see, what happens in a hypnosis session.
You're gonna love it. I've used hypnosis to give up chocolate. I've given up soda. I hypnotize myself. Yeah, I've given up. Yes, yeah. So I absolutely love it. So you could go to finalstepinternational.com. We're on Instagram. We're on LinkedIn, and then the book is When Nobody's Home, and it looks like this. So this is the workbook, but the book looks just like it. And the book is When Nobody's Home, Understanding Human Behavior. And that's on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, so it's all over. There's also an ebook. I think I just dropped the price on the ebook to 99 cents. I talked to the publishing company so they could drop the price so everybody could get it. So, and then, Alina Yugas Wellness on Instagram. And so and also Alina Yugas on my website. So we do have the links to it for you. It says schedule an appointment. So it is the 20-minute. It says discovery session. So you could go and book your own discovery session. Yeah.
Well, I appreciate you taking some time in. This is really good. I think, there's going to be a lot of people who are going to be really interested in reaching out, because I think that what you all are doing is so needed, and especially now in this period. I think we're getting we're in a space right now where people are really trying to be more holistic in their approach to wellness. And
right.
You can go to the gym all you want, which is a great thing, but it's mind, body, and spirit as well.
Right.
So I'm taking care of every aspect of yourself and making sure
you could look all pretty on the outside, but if you're damaged on the inside, it's not going to work.
It doesn't matter, right?
You're right. And then also, don't forget that, that's not a picture, but you could also schedule an appointment with either myself or Michael. So the both of us are available.
Cool.
Okay.
Well, I appreciate it. I'm excited to continue to follow all the things that you're doing.
Absolutely.
I'm pretty sure there's going to be lots of different industries that are going to be reaching out to you all, because from CEOs to law enforcement to social workers to, every person. I mean, listen, you got a lot of people, these essential workers right now,
right.
In the financial industry, a lot of people are having to make some really difficult, tough decisions, and
being able to talk to leadership and people who are those decision makers. I think
Right.
it's really beneficial to have a conversation with you and Michael. So.
Yeah. So we're here. Let us know.
Cool. Send Michael my regards. Tell him I said hello. And
I will.
I will be talking to you all soon.
Okay, babe. Thank you so much. It was a pleasure. Looking forward to helping.
Thank you.
All right.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Have a good one.
You too. Bye-bye.
Oh, bye.
Okay, guys. So that was the end of my podcast. I look forward to helping and serving all of you. So if you want to schedule a free consultation, is alinayugas.com or finalstepinternational.com, and you can go ahead and schedule your 20-minute consultation. Thank you so much, and I look forward to serving you.